These are the stories topping the news. Help wanted to find a missing man, the new electoral boundaries are being clarified, and the Honorable Marcella Liebert is helping youth in her constituency develop a love for music. Good afternoon and welcome to ZIZ's Midday Newscast for today, Monday, January 19th, 2015. I am JD Keynes. Now for the news in detail. Police are seeking the public's assistance in locating 53-year-old Alfred Basil Phipps, who has been missing since January 15th. The Sadler's Village man was last seen at around 7 a.m. last Thursday. Family members filed a missing persons report with police on January 17th after Phipps did not return home and was not to be found. Mr. Phipps is 5 feet 6 inches tall, of average build, and has a dark complexion. Anyone with information on the whereabouts of Alfred Phipps is asked to contact the D8 Bay Police Station at 465-7261, the nearest police station, or Crime Stoppers at 1-800-8477. Public information regarding the new St. Kitts and Nevis electoral boundaries has begun in preparation for federal elections. 3 constituencies are unaffected by the changes made. These are constituencies number 1 and 2 on St. Kitts and constituency number 11 on Nevis. Constituency number 3 remains the same minus West Farm, Boyd's, Palmetto Point, including Garvey's, the Abbots, Fairview, and adjacent communities. Constituency 4 remains as presently configured, but now includes West Farm, Boyd's, Palmetto Point, including Garvey's, the Abbots, Fairview, and adjacent communities. Newton Ground has been removed from Constituency 6 and is now part of Constituency number 5, which otherwise remains the same. Constituency number 6 now includes all villages except Newton Ground from Bellevue to Tabernacle. Constituency 7 excludes Bellevue to Tabernacle, but includes Otleys and all areas of Cayon. These include areas from Estridge to Mansion and all of Cayon. Boundaries in Constituency 8 remain the same apart from the removal of Otleys and Cayon. In Nevis, Constituency 9 remains as presently configured minus Coal Hill, Victoria Road and Beach Road, Bird and Pasture, Morning Star, Church Ground, Prospect and Brown Hill. Number 10 now includes Coal Hill, Victoria Road and Beach Road, Bird and Pasture, Morning Star, Church Ground, Prospect and Brown Hill. Parliamentary Representative for Central Bastia, the Honorable Marcella Liebert, wants to do more for the youth in her community. Recently, Minister Liebert revealed plans to capitalize on skills in music producing and performing.
Right. As a matter of fact, I'm engaging a young man right now along those lines because I'd started to have a vision of central orchestra. So I still have, and we want to really start that going forward. Right. I was able to beg some instruments. I received some, I think last year sometime, a few, and I got word that we're going to get some more February next month. Right. So we'll have more musical instruments.
We move now to news on the regional scene. The Fisheries Department of St. Lucia is training its technical staff. Fisheries officials say the educational sessions target staff who provided training to fishermen. They say the goal is to ensure safety standards for fishers.
That fishermen adhere to safety guidelines. It is doing so by boosting the capacity of those who provide training to local fishers. Acting Chief Fisheries Officer Sarita Williams says the educational sessions are important in order to minimize mishaps at sea.
It stems from work we've been doing with the industry. We have engaged the TVET Council, the Technical Vocational Education Training Council, in an effort to collaborate and develop standards, competency-based education standards for training fishers, particularly in boating safety.
Williams says the 3-day training exercise focused on small-scale fishers.
The Maritime Division have been focusing more on larger vessels in terms of ensuring that they get the boat master's license, the captain requirements. However, the fishers have been not necessarily scrutinized or allowed to go through that process. And so what we're trying to do is create specific training requirements for our fishers to meet. So those standards will address specifically our fishermen and their unique case and their unique vessel that they operate as well, because they may not necessarily have to do everything that someone who's operating a large catamaran is doing, but they need to have certain standards in place.
The fisheries official says the goal is to ensure that local fishing standards meet the requirements of the International Maritime Organization. The department is partnering with the maritime unit of SLASPA and the Marine Police in this training venture.
In Guyana, a prolonged argument between two taxi drivers turned bloody as a fight broke out. Here's more.
Patrons entering the new thriving restaurant on Main Street were today entertained by a boxing showdown between two taxi drivers. The punch-out quickly turned bloody when one of the drivers struck the other driver on his head with a wheel spanner. When the police arrived on the scene, both drivers, Raymond and the other one called Wikidi, were in denial as to who threw the first punch. One eyewitness told this newscast that the two were arguing earlier in the day.
I went over there earlier and I spoke to them. I came back over here. Then I came to scramble like one over. And the two fell in first time yesterday last night. Just the scramble.
A vehicle belonging to one of the patrons of the restaurant was damaged in the scuffle. The police detained both drivers for wrongdoing in court. In December, reporting for Capital News.
Internationally, almost 200 people have been killed and tens of thousands of hectares of farmland have been destroyed by floods in the southern African nation of Malawi. A further 100,000 people have also been displaced, and the situation is set to get worse, with Malawi's Department of Meteorological Services warning that heavy rains may continue. Al Jazeera's Catherine Soy reports from southern Malawi, where farmers have lost all their crops.
Olipa Chauluka is devastated. She was hoping to harvest her maize in April. She had enough in storage to last her till then. Then the floods came and she lost everything, including her home.
I'm lost. I don't have any plans. I don't know what I can do. My fertilizer and seedlings have also been washed away. To be honest, I'm stranded.
She and many other farmers in these agricultural districts in southern Malawi now have to rely on food handouts.
The water from a nearby river swept away everything on its path. More than 16,000 farmers in this center lost all their crop. Those we talked to said that they've never witnessed this kind of flooding before.
The floods were unprecedented, affecting areas that had never been flood prone. Climate change and deforestation are being blamed. More than 1/3 of Malawi is classified as forest land, but the rate of deforestation is one of the highest in southern Africa.
The rains came very late. They came in amounts that have never been. The environment has been devastated through charcoal burning, cutting wood for curing tobacco, for burning bricks.
Roughly 90% of Malawians use charcoal or firewood. Here's Dorothy White, carrying Malawi's future away on her head. She's one of the millions who use charcoal to cook. There's no choice, she told us.
The problem is electricity. We've not had any for a month. I know charcoal comes from cut down trees, but what can I do?
The government is struggling to feed more than 100,000 people displaced by floods. It's a disaster that has only made things worse in a country where food was already hard to come by. Catherine Soy, Al Jazeera, Mlanje in southern Malawi.
ISIL fighters in Iraq have released around 200 captives from the minority Yazidi community. They were transported from Nineveh province to Kurdish-held territory. It is not as yet clear why they were released, but many are elderly people. Almost 4,000 Yazidis, almost half of whom are women, are still believed to be held by ISIL. Al Jazeera's Jane Araf reports from the Iraqi capital of Baghdad.
Most of them were elderly, disabled, or sick. All of them were traumatized. Among them are some of the oldest members of an ancient religious minority under attack by ISIL. When the gunmen rampaged through their homeland near Sinjar Mountain in June, these Yazidis were rounded up and taken to Tel Afar, near the Syrian border. But the U.S. and Iraq have been bombing Tel Afar, and they were taken from there to Mosul, where ISIL decided it didn't want them anymore.
We were in Mosul when they told us they'll send us to Tel Afar. On the way, I asked the driver where he was taking us. He told us he was taking us to a safe place. I thought it would be Tel Afar, but we ended up in a district south of Kirkuk.
Still Yazidi in their hearts, some converted to Islam when threatened by ISIL. Fawzia Jamal says she spent 3 months in Tel Afar.
We told them that we would become Muslim and they didn't hurt us. But they kept on kidnapping girls. They kidnapped my neighbor, a young Yazidi girl, and another neighbor who is Christian.
Kurdish forces picked up the Yazidis and gave them medical treatment before sending them to a camp near Dohuk for displaced Iraqis. It wasn't entirely clear why ISIL released them, but activists say it could be because the radical group, increasingly under siege by fighting, can no longer take care of such a large number of prisoners. While ISIL has killed hundreds of Yazidi men, it has said it won't harm those who convert.
More than 4,000 Yazidis are believed still held by ISIL. Almost half of those are women. The group has said it doesn't recognize their religion, so it considers the women spoils of war to be used, bought, and sold, leaving their agonized families waiting and wondering if they'll ever see them again. Jane Arath, Al Jazeera, Baghdad.
And now the weather. Today will be partly sunny with a chance of showers later this evening. Temperatures will reach a high of 28 degrees and a low of 24 degrees, with winds blowing from the east-southeast at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Sunsets will be at 5:58 p.m. The weather presentation brings us to the end of ZIZ's Midday Newscast for today, Monday. Join us this evening for these stories and more when we present our major news presentation. I have been your presenter, JD Keynes. Have a great afternoon.